Hello, my name is Aidan and welcome to another Golf Predictor tutorial. In this video I shall be talking about the DFS features on Golf Predictor. For those of you who do not know, DFS stands for Daily Fantasy Sports and is a relatively new phenomenon primarily in America. In the context of golf, instead of picking a lineup of golfers every week for say a season or a significant part of a season, you pick your lineup of golfers for an individual tournament. So over the course of a single week, the entire DFS golf contest is run and you can get your rewards, or lack of same, immediately. I believe that DFS contests were invented to circumvent the ban on online gambling in America. As fantasy sports are considered to be games of skill rather than chance, they get around the ban. However, they're still somewhat murky legally, so they are not available outside the US or Canada. So those of us in Europe or elsewhere have to make do with online gambling for now. So let's look at the new DFS features that I added recently to Golf Predictor for my American users of the site. To do that, we'll go to the predictions menu and select the rankings DFS option. If you do that, you will be brought to the following page, which as usual I have preloaded on a separate tab. This page is similar to previous pages I've gone through on other tutorials, such as the normal prediction rankings page and the prediction ranking page with bookie odds. So you can refer to those tutorials for more details. Scrolling down, you see the main differences between the previous pages that I covered and this new DFS page is the addition of several new columns on the right hand side, two of which are color coded. There are also several new charts that you can see linked over the data table that are specific to DFS. There is also a new metric up here that I'll talk about in due course. I use information from DraftKings, which is the biggest DFS golf site on the market currently, as the basis for the analysis that I do on the site for DFS users. The first thing to say about this DFS analysis is that users should treat the two color-coded columns separately. So to begin, I shall talk about the first color-coded column. Once the salaries have been imported into Golf Predictor, they are ranked from the highest salary being given the rank 1. So for example, you can see that Jordan Spieth there has got the highest salary of $12,000, so he is given a DraftKings or a DFS rank of 1. And so on down the line. Then, similar to how I compared the bookie odds, I compared the DFS rank, which is this column, to the GP rank, which as usual is the first column, and based on that analysis, we see which golfers are good value from this point of view in DraftKings. So you can see, for example, that Jordan is also ranked number 1 by Golf Predictor, and that means he's ranked about correctly on DraftKings. Similarly for Dustin Johnson and Henrik Stenson. However, you can see there that, for example, Bubba, ranked number 4 by Golf Predictor, is only ranked 11 by DraftKings. Similarly, Sergio Garcia is ranked 10th by DraftKings, but 6th by Golf Predictor. This means that Golf Predictor thinks that these two golfers are undervalued by DraftKings. Similarly, if you look at, say, Justin Rose or Ricky Fowler, Justin Rose is ranked 10th by Golf Predictor, but 3rd by DraftKings, which means that according to Golf Predictor, he is overvalued by DraftKings. So this is similar color coding to what we saw on the prediction ranking odds page in a previous tutorial. So you can use this first color coded column to spot good value picks from a Golf Predictor ranking point of view. The next column on this data table is the average points the golfer scores in each DFS game. So for example, you can see that Jordan Spieth has just over 93 points per game on average on DraftKings, while Dustin Johnson has got about 74.5 points per game. The last column then we have is the dollars per point. This is basically how many dollars you're paying for each of these average points that the golfer has. So it's this column, the salary column, divided by the average points column. Before I go into this final color-coded column in more detail, I would just like to outline some of the charts available for DraftKings on the side. So for example, if you wanted to see who has the highest or lowest DraftKings points per game, you can click on the appropriate graph, so we'll see who's got the most. So clicking on that, as usual, if you hover over the bar in question, you get more information. So to see more information on Jordan Spieth, who's got the highest number of points per game, it shows you his salary on DraftKings and his DraftKings rank. Okay. So going back to the main page, you can also see who has the best DK dollars per point by clicking on this chart link. Looking down there again, you see that surprisingly enough, the people with the best values for this are Mark O'Meara, Pablo Razabal, Ross Fisher, and Thomas Aiken. Now, all these golfers are either on the senior US Tour in the case of O'Meara, or in the case of the other three are European Tour players and do not have much US PGA Tour information. So if they have played one tournament, say on the US Tour, and they happen to show well in it, they will have a high value for this. So we can ignore those for analysis purposes and go and see that the tour regulars that have the lowest value for this are Robert Streb, who's been playing very well lately, Matt Jones, and Jimmy Walker, who of course has won a couple of times this season already. Okay, so we'll go back to the main page again. As I said before, if you take the salary for any golfer, divide that by their average points per game, you get their dollars per point. So if you do that for the entire field and average it out, you will get the value that's printed out there above the chart links, and that is $151.55. So see here in the final column, any golfer whose value is less than the average is color coded in the shade of green. The more they are below the average, the greener the shading is. Similarly, any golfer whose value is above the average value for the field is color coded in the shade of red, and any golfers whose dollars per point is very close to the field average, they are colored in yellow. So you can see by looking at this column at a glance which golfers are overvalued or undervalued from an average points per game point of view. By looking at the color coding for the first column, you can see at a glance which golfers are under or overvalued compared to the Golf Predictor rankings. So that's what these two columns do. The last thing I would like to talk about in this video is the rather nifty field dollars per point chart. So if we click on that, we shall be brought into this, and you can see this chart for the 2015 Open Championship. What this chart does is at a glance tells you which golfers give you more bang for your buck on DraftKings. This orange line denotes the field average for salary per average points scored. So for example, it tells you at every salary level what the average points the golfer should have to match the field average. For example, if the golfer is valued at $8,000, he should have a corresponding average points per game of 52.78 to match the average. So looking at this chart, it is a visual representation of the second color-coded column on the DFS page that we saw a few minutes ago, whereas all golfers who are around the orange line are the ones that are highlighted in yellow on the DFS column. Those below the line are the ones highlighted in red on the DFS page, and the ones above the line are the ones that are highlighted in green on the DFS page. So as an example, we look again at the $8,000 mark on DraftKings. You see that, for example, Lee Westwood is one of the golfers on this mark, but he's got an average points per game of 63.3. If we go straight down until we cut across the average line, we see the value we saw before. His average points at this salary will be expected to be only 52.7. So therefore, Lee Westwood is slightly undervalued because he's got more points than the salaries that he is at would justify, so therefore he might be a good choice. If you go completely horizontally until you meet the line, you see the salary that he should be at given the amount of average points he in fact has. So you see there that a fair salary for Lee Westwood would be about $9,600. So overall, Lee Westwood on a comparison of the average salary per points for the field would make a pretty solid pick. Also, a feature of this chart is you can zoom in on certain areas. This is because a lot of the points might be very close together, so it could be difficult to focus on the golfer you're interested in. So for example, if you wanted to see these points here in more detail, just drag the mouse and let it go when you're happy, and you'll see a close-up of the section that you've just highlighted. And you can see the golfers more easily by just hovering over each data point. To return to the chart as it was, simply double-click the chart and you're back to where you started. So this is a really cool chart, and it is the one I am most proud of the 380 odd charts on the site at the moment. So you should really start using this because it's very handy for DFS purposes. A final note about this chart is that some golfers on the system do not have any points per game scored yet, because they might, for example, be European Tour golfers that have never played on the US Tour before. So they are all listed separately underneath the chart, as you can see there. So we're done with the page, so we'll go back to the main DFS page. A final point here before I go is that this color code table tries to tell you what the code is for both these columns at the same time. So for example, let's look at the color code for red. It means overvalued / above average. So the first value there means it corresponds to this column, and the second item corresponds to the second color coded column. So in the context of the first column, red means overvalued. In the context of the second column, it means above average, and similarly for the other colors. The last thing I would like to talk about in this video is the DFS data added to the prediction data page for each golfer. So if you click on either golfer's names, you will be brought to the prediction data page for that golfer. So if you click on Jordan or Spieth, you'll be brought to the following page, which I have also preloaded. And you can see in the general statistics panel, you have a couple of rows there with DFS information. So you get, similar to what you saw before in the data table on the previous page, you see the rank, you see the salary, you see the average points per game, and the dollars per point for the golfer. If you hover over this value here, you see the average for the field so that you compare it easily. Now, as you see there, there are chart icons after each of these. So as the season goes on, you can see how the golfer's data changes. So for example, if you want to see how Jordan's salary has changed since the Golf Predictor started importing DraftKings information, you click on the chart link and you see there in the US Open, he started at 12,600 was his salary. Then in the next event of the John Deere, he was up to 13,700, and then for some reason, despite winning those previous two events, he was reduced to 12,000 for the Open Championship. Well, don't blame me, that's DraftKings. You can also see some more information here about the total number of data points and the average value are just calculated there. Okay, close that, and we'll go back to the main page. So before I finish, I'd just like to note that only subscribers can see the entire field on this page and access these charts, and especially this important field dollars per point chart. So I would encourage you to consider subscribing to Golf Predictor to get the most out of the site for your DFS purposes. Well, that's about it for today. I hope you found this tutorial useful and you've seen how Golf Predictor can really help you make great DFS golf choices. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.